F1 the movie opens Friday, June 27th. If you go this weekend, please let me know what you think. I will say, the early buzz is positive. It's receiving scores of 86 out of 100 from critics and 98 out of 100 from audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. Of course, F1 worked closely with the producers of the film, Jerry Bruckheimer and others, and F1 hopes to get a real lift of new audiences around the sport and following the sport from F1 the movie with Brad Pitt. If you go, let me know what you think. And this is your morning Buzzcast for Thursday, June 26. I'm Abe Madkour. The NBA draft first round Wednesday night showcased some really good stories. And it's always refreshing to see these young people and their families on such a special night. I'll say the picks that I watched, the interviews, players, all so impressive. When it comes to the agency breakdown, CAA Sports and Wasserman tied for the most first-round picks of the draft, 6 selections for each agency. Now, CAA's Austin Brown represents the coveted first overall pick with Cooper Flagg, and he, of course, went to the Dallas Mavericks. Meanwhile, WME Basketball's Bill Duffy and Clutch's Rich Paul tied for the most clients selected in the first round, with each having 4. Duke walked away with the most first-round selections. They had 3 players taken. Illinois, Rutgers, they had 2 first-round selections, so they were tied for second. And the big picture, the Big Ten led the way with 8 picks in the first round and showing the global nature of the NBA. 3 players in the first round came from France. Another winner last night was New Balance, which only has a fraction of the footwear market share, but it does have Cooper Flagg, and they are hoping he can make them more relevant in the sports space. Flagg, of course, grew up in a small Maine town, which happened to be near one of New Balance's factories. And New Balance is, of course, a New England brand. So New Balance pitched Cooper Flagg on partnering with the company with a tribute video from the workers at the Maine facility a few years ago, and they've landed Cooper Flagg. New Balance has a growing sports and NBA roster. In the last few years, it signed Kawhi Leonard, Jamal Murray, and now it has Cooper Flagg. Round 2 of the NBA draft tonight, Thursday. You know, one of the most common issues or complaints we hear in the sports business is that the seasons of the big sports are too long. Would leagues ever think about cutting back in the number of games? I haven't believed there was much interest by owners to reduce the number of games, and now comes a report of one league looking to actually add games to its regular season. Yes, the NHL and the NHL Players Association are talking about a potential increase to an 84-game regular season, and that's according to ESPN. Now, an increase over the current 82-game schedule would help in the scheduling imbalance. A lot of teams complain about that they don't get enough divisional games against their rivals, and those games are big because they generally draw larger crowds and bigger television audiences. So they want more of those divisional rival games. That's come up in these collective bargaining talks. So the NHL and the players could add just 2 more games, but this move would certainly go against conventional wisdom. The bottom line is the NHL and the PA are seemingly making very positive progress on reaching a new CBA early and avoiding any work stoppage, which is always a good thing. Moving on, a shot in the arm for the Premier Lacrosse League, which has landed a 5-year media rights renewal with ESPN, and ESPN will also be taking a small equity stake in the league. So now they have an extended deal, media, through 2030, and now they've been in business. The PLL has been in business with ESPN now for 4 years. They launched initially with NBC Sports, but now ESPN taking a minority stake in the league, and they join really an all-star crew of investors in the PLL. Josai, the Kraft Group, the Chernin Group, CAA, Arctos, the Rain Group, David Blitzer's Bolt Capital, all investors in the Premier Lacrosse League. Now, it could not be determined what the size of ESPN's equity stake is in the league or what the PLL is valued at as a whole. But the PLL will use the new investment to build around their infrastructure and to look at player compensation packages and marketing and content development. So they are reinvesting into the league. Now, ESPN, of course, has made other minority investments. Remember, they owned the X Games for so many years. But here's the thing. The PLL is led by Paul and Mike Rabel. They're working really hard to build a new league. They have a lot of credibility in the sports and media landscape. Meanwhile, ESPN has a number of its leaders, Jimmy Pitaro, Burke Magnus, and others who are very bullish on the sport of lacrosse and believe in the PLL. And in the future, you could see the PLL shift from its single entity ownership model to one which all the teams are locally owned, with a focus on a local market all year round, instead of a touring model, which they really had employed for the last few years. So the PLL already has 8 locally identified teams, and now, with ESPN's media deal and new capital, they have some bandwidth to think through these new ideas as they look to grow the sport of lacrosse. Dodgers owner Mark Walters' acquisition of a majority stake in the Lakers is expected to close in the third or fourth quarter of this year. And remember, while there'll be some changes with new ownership for sure, Lakers controlling owner and president Jeannie Buss will remain governor of the team, and she will continue to oversee all team operations on a day-to-day basis for the foreseeable future. So some real continuity with Jeannie Buss staying in the key decision-maker seat going forward at the Lakers. Shifting over to NASCAR, Joey Logano, he took the top spot in the first round of NASCAR's new driver ambassador program. We've seen this across a number of sports, and this is a new program that NASCAR began with the company Influencer that awards points to drivers based on how much they promote the sport through interviews and appearances and even social media posts. Now, the system also assesses the quality of the appearances, and NASCAR funds this through its media rights revenue. And so, by finishing atop in this first round, Logano will receive $1 million. That's according to my colleague Adam Stern, as part of the first round of this ambassador program. And again, we've seen this in golf. We're seeing it in NASCAR. Leagues want to incentivize their athletes to do as much public appearances and as much public interviews promoting the sport as possible. So the top 5 in this first round for NASCAR: Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, and Daniel Suarez. Will continue to watch this ambassador program as it moves forward. And let's end with this. Some details on MLS's top paid players. Maybe no surprise. Lionel Messi, highest paid player in MLS for the 3rd straight year. Overall, he makes about $20 million a year. That is more than the entire payroll of 21 MLS teams. But in good news for the state of MLS and its ability to draw better players, or some of the best players, the average guaranteed compensation was $650,000. That was up 10% from May of 2024. So bottom line, salaries are increasing in MLS. In terms of team payroll, Inter Miami topped the league with a record $46 million payroll for its players. That was double of all other teams except for Toronto and Atlanta. The team with the lowest payroll, Montreal, that was just under $12 million for the Montreal MLS franchise. What does all this mean? MLS still needs more revenue in its system in order to get the top talent. They need more media revenue, sponsorship, and licensing revenue. That will filter to the teams. Teams also want the leeway to dip into their own resources and sign players like Messi. Not that there are a lot of them on the global stage, but there are some. And they see what Messi has done for both Inter Miami and the MLS business, and they want to see if they can make those type of investments. That's a conversation being held across the league's ownership ranks. And speaking of Inter Miami, the team's new 25,000-seat stadium, it's due to open in the spring of next year. Stadium officials say that construction is on schedule and on budget. That'll be a big shot in the arm for MLS, for Inter Miami to have a new home in Miami around Messi, who will still be playing. So just a look there at some of the MLS finances and player compensation. I'll be in Atlanta later today, Thursday, speaking at a Business of Sports Summit. We'll talk about the biggest issues in sports business that SBJ is keeping an eye on. I'll also be sitting down with new Michigan State Athletic Director and former Georgia Tech Athletic Director, Jay Batt, and we'll be talking about all the challenges yet opportunities that today's athletic directors face in the dynamic collegiate sports landscape. If you're going to be at the Business of Sports Summit, please say hello. I'd love to see you. Meanwhile, Austin Karp, a Georgia Tech alum, will be bringing you the Buzzcast on Friday. And so that is your morning Buzzcast for today, Thursday, June 26th. I'm Abe Madkour. Stay healthy, be good to each other. I'll speak to you next week.